disciples, if you have love for one another. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Our gospel for the Sunday comes to us from the book of John, the 13th chapter. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
You may be seated. I would like to invite the children forward. And kids, I think you can hear me in the Rundle room there. So if you're hearing that and you're playing with the Legos, put them down for a second. Come on forward. The creations can resume in a minute. Good morning, Thomas and Ellie. How are you guys? Beckett, how you doing? Beckett, I didn't get a chance to tell you that your hair looks awesome this morning. Really good. So good morning, everyone. So I prepped you during Sunday school already for what I'm going to need you to do during this time, which is to pass out rocks and to get people's, not signatures, just their first initial of your name. And we're going to do something special with these rocks, everyone. They're going to go in the baptismal font. You maybe heard baptism just a couple of lessons ago, if you were listening in our first lesson. Peter talked about baptism. He said that through the baptism, every single person gets to be a part of the family of God. And when they first heard that in the early church, they thought maybe just a few people, maybe just them, maybe people who looked like them. But when they heard that it was going to be absolutely everybody, they were thrilled. They were so excited about that. So us who have been baptized, or maybe who are on that journey to becoming baptized, but definitely who get to be a part of the family of God, sometimes we need reminders that we count, that we're included in that everybody else is, and that is a big responsibility, and that we're all still in that water, even if it's just because we've got a name on a rock and that's just sitting in the font there. But that might be a helpful way to remember that. And that's going to sit there for a couple weeks until we have a very special holiday coming up. So stand on up. I'm going to need your help with this. I think first of all, get as many, grab one of these, just one. Oh, I know, the colors are hard. Pink, good. Jackson, you got one. I've got a few more here. Can you take orange? Sure. Okay. I think I've got one more in here. Correct, Kara. Okay. Here's your rock. Get as many first initials on that rock as you can from within the congregation. Very good. Let me get you. Well, you got a small one. You're going to get you a bigger rock than that. Hold on. Here, trade that with somebody. Take two. Because you get two. Here, and give that one. Here, that's a nice one, like that. Okay, you guys dispersing? Perfect. Yeah, sure, go ahead. And yeah, write your own first initial too. There's your, no, not in your mouth, Ellie. This isn't to eat. Okay, so disperse amongst the congregation. And could I get somebody who would help me up here with choir too? Because otherwise no one's going to get them, and that's important. Jenna, come with me. Would you help out up here? Okay. Start with Susan over here. I know she wants to have a nice S on that rock. Start with Susan. She's got the yellow mask that matches her entire outfit. Very beautiful. And then once your rock is full, Valina, why don't you lead the people? Can you open those doors up there? And once your rock is full, Valina will help you to put it in the font And then I'd like for you to return to your seats with whoever you're with this morning. Thomas, did you fill your rock up? Okay. And then take it and then bring it to the font. Yeah, saying thank you would be a good idea too, by the way. Maybe if somebody haven't had their name yet, you could raise your hand so we, or did we get everybody? Very thorough. Okay, good. I'm impressed. We got to get the rest of these guys. What's that? In the water. Yep, that's right in the water. Excellent job. And as we finish up, we've got a little song that reminds us what our baptism is for. Vic? If anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child. I'll take that. Bring that to the lid. We don't need that one? Okay, perfect. Thank you, thank you. All right. Hey, Caden, would you stay here for a second? Right there's perfect. Okay. Will you join with me in prayer? O Lord, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our redeemer. Amen. Thank you, Becca. Do you know what an easel is, Caden? Exactly. Do you think you'd make a good one? Do you think you would be a good easel if I asked you to be an easel for a few seconds? Okay, stand here, please. This is a painting that hangs in, I'll show choir real quick first, that hangs in my office. You mind holding this for me? We're going to do a little art together. I'm the only one who finds this painting beautiful in my entire family. The story of how I came to have it is through a mistake. We ordered some art. I think my parents ordered some art, and this just came with it. And nobody knows who it is, where it's from, what it is. I find it beautiful, and it's probably because some of my first forays into literature very much looked like this. I enjoyed Russian novels growing up and that sort of thing. So scenes of parlors and words exchanged over shoulders and propositions that included both love and money and all these things. I kind of like this. The only reason why I find this beautiful, and I think no one else is actually the technical parts of it. I think they don't like it because they think that the colors are washed out and everything. But I think if you follow with me, this is a painting about love. The eyes are drawn usually in a painting right to the center, right? And you can see in the middle of the painting, there is a woman looking over her shoulder, and she's quite beautiful and has a very kind expression on her face. She's looking over her shoulder at a man who is looking nervous. He's hunched over a little bit, hat's in his hand. He's a little nervous. One of the things that you can do with a painting when you ask yourself, why were my eyes pulled there, is to follow lines of sight, which is to say that sometimes actual physical lines within the painting will draw your eyes a certain direction, or the glances of the other characters in this case. So look to see who is looking at this scene play out. Well, we've got this man, that man, they're both looking directly down there. So is this woman. So is this woman who's casting a look as if she doesn't want whatever's happening here to happen. Maybe she is a spurned lover, or she was hoping that this proposition that's happening here was going to be for her. Regardless, I think those other characters are looking on almost a little nostalgically, like they remember back when they were proposed to many years ago. I think what's happening here is filled with layers of meaning about what love even is. Because love is sometimes mediated through our social space. Love is scary, isn't it? I mean, this guy looks like he's terrified of what's happening. It's putting yourself out there and acknowledging that you might be rejected, but it's also an act of great bravery, and it's something that connects the eons together. And I think that this painting is beautiful. And there, I've said it. Thank you, easel. Very, very well done. Appreciate that. Let's give our easel a round of applause. Thank you, Katie. The point of today's sermon is, what does love look like? We're told that we are supposed to show love to the world through our interactions in fellowship as Christians with one another. And ultimately, I think that love is beautiful, isn't it? And we see a scene like that, and we see how beauty is intrinsically tied to love. Love shows itself as being a beautiful thing. Thomas, no thanks, buddy. Can you go sit, please? Because that actually is glass. I need you to go sit with Mom. So this beauty of love is also, I think, on display very much in the kind of love that Jesus tells us to exhibit to one another. We're supposed to show the world a kind of beauty, the incredible, lovely beauty that is being together, sharing our woes and our triumphs, reminding one another of the good gifts and of the community that is to come, the New Jerusalem we heard about in our Revelations reading, that talks about there being a community of resurrected people that is promised. That kind of thing is a beautiful thing. That passage out of Revelations, incidentally, gets read at a lot of funerals. I have probably said it every single funeral I've ever done. And one of the things that people always tell me about that, and usually the 23rd Psalm and usually something else after the service, is they say, that service really was beautiful. Really was beautiful. And that's, of course, when you hear that, you think, oh, good, that is what I wanted to make. But that's actually a very significant statement, isn't it? Because it's beautiful in the midst of things that we could just as well call quite ugly. It's sometimes we talk about having tears and emotions well up in such a way that we say, and then I started ugly crying. Have you ever heard that phrase before? Ugly crying isn't the kind of crying you see on TV. It's when the snot flows and it just gets gross, but it's real. You know, that's ugly crying. We look at death, and we've called death ugly, haven't we? We don't like what happens to the corpse. We don't like to look on that. We don't consider it beautiful at all. And yet, I can't tell you how many times funerals have been called a beautiful scene. I think that beauty is complicated, isn't it? It obviously shows that, especially the beauty of God's love, can't be summed up in conventional terms. In fact, I think we should be very suspicious of conventional beauty. We live in Marblehead. It's a beautiful town. It's filled with beautiful people. And the standards, aesthetic standards of what we are from time to time can be quite exclusionary. Have any of you ever thought to yourself on a walk out in Marblehead, uh-oh, I don't look beautiful enough, or I haven't dressed up enough to be allowed into the place that I'm about to go. I got to go home and change. If you don't know that place or haven't been there, then I'm astounded at your wardrobe, because to be prepared for every possible scenario, to look the way you're supposed to look in this town is impossible. There's dress codes everywhere you look. And that is our first foray into the way that beauty can be an exclusionary thing as well. It could be something that just as well keeps us out as one that invites us in. Beauty, as it pertains to this, when taken to its ultimate form and unfortunately most radicalized form, is the source of a great deal of pain in the world. Just yesterday, there was a mass shooting in upstate New York, and it was done by a avowed 18-year-old white supremacist who was radicalized on the internet and chose people because of the way they looked. He chose them based on their appearances alone and killed a good number of them at a grocery store. And this is not a pattern that is divorced from looks and how we ascribe beauty and goodness, but it's one that is deeply held. If we search back, a lot of the ideologies that he espoused, it goes right back to Nazi Germany. It's something that we've fought over and over again. And for as much as the Nazi movement was about power and about national identity and about the promises in the economy, we often forget that a big portion of what the Nazis did was an aesthetic movement. They chose and they lifted up the things that they thought were beautiful, and their version of exclusion was not just to call certain art degenerate and to say that that needed to be removed, like abstract expressionism on basically the paintings like that one, but they determined that certain people were inherently unbeautiful, that they could never be made lovely. And so were not deserving of that. And their form obviously came and ended in terrific violence as well. So we know that the idea of conventional beauty is deeply problematic and needs to be challenged in that way. We also know that the love that we have on display, the love that is foundational to the Christian, is no less familiar with violence, but it's the opposite. It's on the receiving end. How many of you have ever been to an art museum? Usually, I mean, the Italian ones are the best at this because they've got all the Renaissance painters. Ever seen a Caravaggio before, or even a Michelangelo? These times from the Renaissance when people were just so adept at painting expressions and extremely emotionally expressive characters. I love these. They're usually very bright and vibrant too, unless it's El Greco. But regardless, these people and these vivid emotions are almost always in the midst of being martyred. And they're really horrific events. Sometimes they'll show St. Stephen. Sometimes they'll show somebody getting their head chopped off, like John the Baptist. These are the favorite, things from these eras. And you ask yourself, wow, that'd be a heck of a thing to put in your living room. But evidently the nobles wanted it that way. And the power of them is that they take this moment and put beautiful expression into it. And the expression is the love of God. Even with subject material that is so violent and hard to see, hello again, Ellie, they manage to lift it up and exalt it through beauty, but not conventional beauty, through the beauty of the cross, the beauty and the pattern of what Jesus has already done for us. Our scripture tells us today, love one another the way that I have loved you. If we are to be beautiful to one another, if we are to share and to make that obvious, and that is what we're being asked to do. We are being asked to paint, to show something. We are asked to do something aesthetic here today. Then we're going to do so not in the way the world doles out beauty, but in the way that Christ did, patterned on the cross, patterned on what we have seen in the crucifixion and the life and the love that Jesus poured out for us. So what's that look like? Well, I'll give you one example. This week in Salem, there was a fire. It was on Hancock Street, not far from where we live, as a matter of fact. Devastating fire. Immediately, I called our friends, actually after Gailey told me we should do something about this. And I said, yes, Gailey, you're right. We should get the Manna Project involved because taking people who have been burned out of their homes, who are now transient, is what the Manna Project does. We make sure that they are fed, that they are allowed to have and to hope to have again, at least just with foodstuffs. That's what we do. So I called the rabbi, he's on board. Let's get this thing going. I call the person at the Salem office, and he is gung-ho, says, I'm so happy that you can help. But you should know that the 9 people living in this home that are now displaced are all single men. Okay, I don't care. But you should know that they were living in what may not have been a totally legal arrangement. Still don't care. Moving on. These may be conditions that would cause others to stop and say, well, then I'm not helping. that's as far as my love extends. And he says, well, they may have also been transient people before this who may have been coming out of homelessness, for instance. Still don't care. The love of God knows no limit. And if we're going to show that to the world, that is how we are supposed to do it as well. There is no outside beauty, nor even interior beauty that, that excludes us from saying to the world, this is who you are. You are beautiful in God's sight. You are worthy of love, and you will be loved. In the coming weeks, we're going to be working with those people and with the people who have been likewise affected by that fire, and hopefully we can help them out. I think that's what the Manna Project is about. But I think it's important that we realize that it will always be founded on God's radical act of love for us in the cross. That is a truly beautiful thing. That we can say amen. Right, Ellie? Amen. And now together with the church, and every time a